So today we are going to talk about how you can sell your restaurant, and I am going to give you a 10-point checklist whenever it comes to selling a restaurant. And these are some guidelines that I have seen over many years of doing this. Now, there's no one way to do this. There's no the way to do it. There are different ways to doing it, and these are just some pointers. First one I want you to think about is for you to understand your market and where you sit within it. There's one thing to say, well, there's many things to say about restaurants, but the one thing to say about restaurants in the beginning is the saturation in the marketplace, the sheer amount of restaurants that pop up every single week in the UK. Around the corner from where you are, you will know this from experience. There are restaurants mushrooming literally every single week in some shape or form. So saturation is really a thing, a factor to consider whenever you sell your business. The second thing would be location. Location, as people in real estate do say. Do you have the footfall? Do you have the numbers? Do you drive the customers that make a restaurant attractive? Is that something that can be improved before you look at selling the business? Where is your business located? Those are very important questions that someone who wants to buy your restaurant is going to look at. And then the third pointer initially I want you to consider is that your competition isn't the other Nigerian restaurant or the other restaurant that does a very specific niche cuisine as you do 30 miles away from you. Your competition is McDonald's, your competition is Greggs, your competition is Pret, your competition is the Thai restaurant right beside you, and all the other alternatives around you. That's your competition. So whenever someone looks at buying a restaurant, they are going to see the offering around you, and they are going to ask themselves the question, is the market saturated here? Is there enough footfall to satisfy everyone's pockets, everyone's profits? So those are three things initially that you have to consider. Understand your market and where you are. Saturation, is there saturation? There will be some sort of saturation because pubs and restaurants seem to be very highly saturated. Location and your competition. Your competition is everyone, all the offerings around you. That's your competition. So there are 10 things I want you to think about whenever you look at selling your company. The first one is, do you understand your numbers inside out? If I ask you, what is your average customer value? Do you know? So for one of my businesses, for example, I know that my average customer transaction is £20.23p. And I know that off the top of my head, and I calculate that and I keep on top of it because it gives me a lot of insight into that business and how it's performing. So do you know your numbers inside out? Do you know your gross margin? Do you know your net margin? Do you know your VAT liability? And that is something I want to touch upon as well in a bit later. Do you produce monthly accounts, monthly management accounts, where you can benchmark your numbers month by month? This is something more of a financial operation than a scallops and noodles and the food that you are actually preparing and want to give your customers. We are looking at numbers, we are looking at things objectively, we are looking at accounts and we are putting those numbers together. So do you know your numbers, and do you know your numbers well enough so that I can come in, look at them and say, right, okay, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense, and I can then ask you questions. Extremely important anytime you want to sell a business. Now, the VAT liability for restaurants and for anyone who prepares hot food is something to really pay attention to, and a lot of people get into the sector and they don't really understand this. So when you buy things, those foods might not attract VAT, the full VAT, a reduced amount of VAT. Once you prepare them, you cook them and you present them, you have to slap 20% on top. So off the top of your sales, your VAT needs to come off. And so the VAT liability for restaurants tends to be a bit higher than for other businesses. So knowing that, is there something you can do around food that doesn't require you to heat it up so that you don't have to charge VAT, or that your VAT liability can be reduced? Look at Greggs, for example. They don't prepare anything, they don't reheat anything, because that attracts VAT. So the way they do things is very specific. And so what other offerings can you really put in place so that your VAT liability, I'm not a VAT expert, but I have seen this all the time. Whenever you look at a VAT liability for a restaurant, it tends to be disproportionately higher than any other business I help sell or I get involved in. So yes, know your numbers, your gross margins, your net margins, your average customer value, your VAT liability, etc., etc. Number 2, so your investment in furniture or ovens or kitchens isn't the reason why people buy a restaurant. The reason why people buy restaurants, or any other business for that matter, is the actual money you make. So the fact that you have spent £500,000 on whatever doesn't mean you need to get £500,000 for it. You can liquidate the assets, and that's a different proposition. But people buy the actual cash that the business produces. So yes, do allocate capital as effectively as possible. Any capital allocation decisions you make have to increase the cash flow of the business. Hopefully, it will increase the cash in the business. Number 3, do you make any money? Are you profitable? In simple terms, how profitable? If you are profitable, if you are thinking about selling your business and you don't want to run your business, do you think someone else is going to pay you for the pleasure of losing money? So this is something that I see literally every single day all over the UK whenever I go to business brokers. You will see restaurants, you will see businesses there that do not make any money, where the owner is fed up of running that restaurant and they want to sell it to you at a premium for the pleasure of losing money, or not making any money, or not making as much money as they would working as a chef or doing something else. That's absolutely bonkers. So are you making money? Is the business a good job? Is the business a good operation? Is the business good? If it is, then you are going to have a shot at selling it. If you have a money losing operation, then you might be able to liquidate the assets. You might be able to sell off certain parts of the business and to value certain parts of the business. but you won't be looking at selling the whole thing as a going concern, because going concerns are money making machines. Otherwise, they wouldn't sell. So yeah. Number 4, do you have a system for recruiting and training staff quickly? Now, restaurants have a very high turnover of staff. Staff turnover is very, very high in businesses like yours. But if you have a system whereby you can recruit and train and put people on the floor very, very quickly, then that will definitely have a positive impact on the value of your business and the saleability of your business. So if your restaurant has a high level of staff turnover, which is okay, which is to be expected in this sort of industry, do you then have a system for recruiting and training and making sure everyone is on board with the business? So yeah, do you have a system for your staff? Number 5, high margin, high value offers. This ties in to the point I made previously. So do you have a system where you come up with offers that give you better profits and that are tested and proven? What do I mean by tested and proven? I mean that if you try to sell me your company and you try to tell me that your restaurant has a lot of potential and that you can make, or that I'm going to be making £200,000 more because of these ideas, but I know you haven't implemented those ideas, then that's paying for potential. That's not an option. That's not a premium. That's something I might see, but something that might not happen. It's called blue sky in business. So, have you got any offers you have implemented in your restaurant that are proven and tested methods of making money? It could be Taco Tuesdays or low calorie Thursdays or whatever. Do you want another bottle of Prosecco? Do you have a way of upselling things, high margin things? 20 years ago when I was working in a restaurant and I was starting my career sort of thing, while I was at university, we used to talk in the restaurant about the perfect bill, and it would be from the first possible little tidbits that you get to wine and cheese at the end, and there was like 6 or 7 things you could sell a customer. So what offers, what things can you sell in your restaurant that are hopefully high margin and that are going to float and drop to the bottom line, aka your profitability? Now, number 6 is an owner-operator sort of mentality, and your ability to cook or to run the restaurant is not the most important thing when you are selling your restaurant. It's the actual money that it makes. So your headaches when it comes to your restaurant need to be those associated with making money, not firefighting within your restaurant. Let me explain. So you fixing the stove, you getting the delivery in, you dealing with HR issues, you doing anything to improve the restaurant with the decor, installing new lamps or new tables or buying new cutlery. That's all well and good, and it will make your restaurant look better, but it's not necessarily going to make the restaurant more money. So what can you implement as a money-making machine scheme. So your ability from running the restaurant is not necessarily what people are going to look at whenever they want to buy it. They want to buy the cash that it generates. So try to shift your focus from running the restaurant to owning the restaurant. And it's very easy to say, and people say it all the time, but it's extremely hard to do and to implement. So yeah. Number 7 has to do with CapEx, capital expenditures. Does anything need replacing, and when? Now, things go wrong and things break, and restaurants and kitchens tend to be quite intensive when it comes to degrading materials and equipment, and that's just normal. You know, the things get used, they depreciate, and then you have to renew them. Now, the CapEx cycle, let's say we buy a kitchen for £100,000 and we depreciate that kitchen £10,000 over 10 years. At the end of those 10 years, I am going to have to reinvest another £100,000 for a new kitchen. Yeah? So do I have enough money in the kitty, as it were, so that in 10 years' time, I can afford a new kitchen? So whenever we talk about CapEx and replacing things, that's how I would look at something. I look at your kitchen. I see that it has been going for 5 years. It's got £50,000 left in it, and I am going to need another £100,000 in 5 years in that example I've just given you. So CapEx, very, very important. Anyone who's looking at this is going to look at it as well. So don't sleep on it. And then the point number 8 has to do with point number 3 rather, and this is that people indeed don't pay for renovations, they don't pay for equipment. If you have invested a lot of money in your business and that business isn't giving you the cash that the level of investment commanded, you have a case of negative equity in the business, and you are very likely not to recuperate it. If you put money in a house and that house, gets flooded tomorrow and you don't have insurance, for example, you are losing money. But whenever people invest in their business and the business doesn't make money, they think they have the money tied up in the assets. Yes, you do have money in the assets are worth something, but those assets are going to I'm going to have to liquidate the assets in order for you to get your money back, or some money back. So people, again, buy the cash the restaurant makes, not how pretty it is, or how high tech something is, or any other things like these. Number 9 has to do with lease or lease considerations. Have you got any breakup clauses? Does the business currently support the lease comfortably? What covenants do you have within the lease? What repairs and maintenance schedule do you have within the lease? Do you have to return the property to form? Let's say you are selling the business and the lease runs out in 1 year, and you have to return the property to form, which means that you would have to uninstall all your equipment, and you are going to be potentially be slapped with a dilapidations clause of, £120,000, because you have to renovate the whole thing to put it back to how it was when you took the premises over. You are going to have to dig into the lease, have a good read. You are going to potentially have to pay a solicitor for their time and for them to explain things to you if you don't understand something. So anything surrounding the lease is extremely important whenever we talk about buying businesses. So when you are selling your business, go back to the lease, analyze the lease. I am currently, for one of my businesses, looking at something within the lease, and I have dug out the lease and I have been reading it top to bottom, bottom to top, and I have been doing that quite a lot. So whenever we talk about leases, it's extremely important that we know what we can do, what we cannot do, and how things are done. Otherwise, it's going to be the headache for you. And then number 10 has to do with you being a bit more of a buyer, looking at things through a buyer's lens. How many other restaurants are there around you for sale? Another question would be, who would be your perfect buyer? Who is your perfect buyer? Is your perfect buyer a venture capital firm? Is your perfect buyer someone who already owns a restaurant and wants to expand their offering, for example? You can go on any amount of brokerage firms and see for yourself how many other restaurants are up for sale. You know, you can, if you are looking at going with a broker and selling your business through a broker, should you ask yourself that question? Take your time and look up some broker pages and restaurants and ask maybe how long they've been on the market for. And they have been on the market for a long time. Is the broker inept? Is the business not worth it? Is the asking price too much? Is it a combination of the two or three? You know, what is the problem there? So before you say, yes, I need £500,000, I'm going to sell my restaurant for £500,000. I tell the broker I want £500,000. The broker is going to agree to the £500,000 because they want the listing. They want you to give them some money. And then you won't be able to sell your business because, it turns out your business is actually worth £120,000. Or you thought your restaurant was worth £5 million and it's only worth £2.5 million. I don't know. This is something I encounter all the time. So if you are going to look at listing with a broker, make sure you do your due diligence and make sure you go on brokerage pages and see how long things have been going on in the market. Have those questions with your broker. You know, be a tentative buyer, which is the best way to be. And if you want to have a consulting call with me because you want to sell your company and you don't really know where to start, or you want to bounce some ideas, that's precisely what I do. And if you want to value your business, you can get in touch below or going on to mycompanyvalue.co.uk. So yeah, thank you.